everybody. Welcome to this episode of Measuring the Circle. We are already on our 8th episode. It's really hard to believe how fast everything has been going. As you can see, my wall behind me is now finally orange. So the next step is I just have to get some weird, cool decorations on my wall, get some cool, creepy posters. So that's really exciting that I no longer have horrible red paint in the background. So this episode, it's just going to be me, you guys. I hope me and Bella, say hi Bella, say hi to the world. Hi everyone. We are going to be talking about the history of Fortean research and what exactly that means. Because when most people think of paranormal things, they immediately get these ideas and images in their head. Big tough guys wearing tight black t-shirts and screaming at ghosts in the darkness. And honestly, paranormal research has been around for centuries, and interest in the afterlife has been around, ever since the beginning of mankind. So I think it's really good to kind of take a step back and look at the history, see what people have been doing in previous times, to really understand where we are now and how we can do better research moving forward. Because personally, my opinion is that we have not done very much advancement in the field of the paranormal. And, that's something that I want to accomplish with this show. I want to be able to make things a little bit more well-rounded and try to look at things in a different angle. So I have a little presentation set up, but before I get that going, I just want to give a shout out. At the end of this, we're going to play an interview that I did. I went to the Illinois chapter MUFON conference 2 weekends ago and got to meet up with Allison Jornlin. She's from the Other Side podcast, See You on the Other Side. And she also does haunted ghost walks in Milwaukee, so you can find her at milwaukeeghost.com. And she just had a really cool trip to Kent, England, which I was extremely jealous of, because who doesn't want to travel abroad, to go study a Fortean researcher from the past. Her name was Crowe. And not too many people know about Crowe, which is a little bit unfortunate because she did a lot of really good research. So we're going to be I'll be playing the interview that I did with Allison 2 weekends ago. I'll be playing that here in just a little bit. So definitely stay tuned to hear what she has to say. And we already have our, programming done for next month. It's going to be a quite interesting show next month. We're going to be talking about hypnotherapy and hypnosis, and the power of the mind and the power of belief, which is definitely a topic that I'm interested in. So if you guys have any suggestions for topics that you'd like us to talk about, or if you want to be on the show, you want to talk to me and interview with me, definitely send us a message. We are at measuringthecircle@gmail.com. You can find us here on YouTube or on Facebook at Measuring the Circle. And I have, right over here, I have a little window that's showing there's live chat on this YouTube video. So if you guys at any point have any questions or want to say, hey, Madeline, I really don't like your orange wall, please don't say that. But if you want to, guess what? There's a chat box right here. So say something, say hello, and if you're a new viewer to the show, just tell me what's going on and what you think of it, because we like to make friends here on Measuring the Circle. Last thing, I promise we'll get to the subject here in just a second. Last thing, I just wanted to say that Jim has been a little bit under the weather, so it's just going to be me today. So all of you believers, spiritualists, and magicians out there, please put out some positive vibes for Jim, that he gets feeling better, because we really, really like his witty sense of humor on the show. So let's go ahead and get started here on 10 minutes of the history of Forteana. Ghost adventures, clearly. I mean, like I said, isn't that what everybody thinks of? Is this, Zach Bagans and Nick Groff and Aaron Goodwin in their tight black t-shirts? Actually, no. Let's take it a step back here. Let's take it one step back here. this painting, it's called A Philosopher Giving a Lecture on the Orrery. This was painted in 1765, and while you might think like, oh wow, what the heck's an orrery and why do I care? An orrery was actually a rather new invention at the time, and it was a mechanical model of the solar system that was used to demonstrate the motions of the planets around the sun. And in 2018, although there's quite a lot of people that think that the Earth is flat, the majority of people understand that the Earth is a spherical ball that is not actually the center of the universe, that it is being orbited around the sun and around the galaxy. And this was a rather, inventive idea at the time, and it's kind of a great painting to just introduce this idea of the Age of Enlightenment. Because, believe it or not, enlightenment and understanding of science and philosophy has not always been around. The age, although the dates definitely vary, a lot of people attribute it to the late 1600s. Some sources say that this, different thinking began in the 1620s and ended, at the late 1700s. It's also called the Age of Reason. And that's because it was when people started thinking that they had their own control over things due to the scientific revolution. Things weren't just given by faith, given by religion, as they had been beforehand. Like I said, their reason. Not accepting things by faith anymore. There started to become this separation between the church and the state. Science discovered that the laws of human nature as well as nature in itself. And they took those concepts and started to think, how can we create a society that's actually better than what we have now? And then this picture here is Weimar's Courtyard of the Muses, and it's kind of a tribute to that Enlightenment period. So out of this period came Emanuel Swedenborg. Who was Emanuel Swedenborg, you say? Well, he lived in 1688 to 1772. He kind of came to fame for being one of the earliest psychics. He authored an extensive work based on his visions. He started having dreams and extremely graphic visual visions of this other side, the spiritual realm. So he started documenting all these different things, and his first book was called Secrets of Heaven, where he journaled his experiences. Something really crazy that a lot of people probably don't know this story. In 1759, he actually had a precognitive experience that was so spot on, and this was way before there was any fast communication capabilities to where he could have faked this. He was in a dinner party in Sweden, and he began to describe this, he got really startled. He like jumped up from the dinner and began describing this fire that was at his home in Stockholm, which was like quite a distance away. It's 250 miles actually away from Sweden. He was saying that the house was completely engulfed in flames, and he was starting to panic, and then he's like, oh, I think somebody's put it out. I feel like it's been put out. Well, 2 days later, men actually arrived and confirmed that, yeah, actually your house was on fire and it was put out, and everything that he said was spot on. So he continued his work. He continued writing. This picture that's on the presentation is one of his last published books before his deaths. It was called The Apocalypse Revelation, which basically his interpretation of the book of Revelations in the Bible. He's 75 years old holding that there, and he continued his work up until his death in 1772, which he actually also predicted to the day, which is crazy. It's crazy. Why don't people know about this stuff? Now, what's really cool is that Swedenborg actually influenced the creation of the Society for Psychical Research. The Society for Psychical Research is often credited as being the first paranormal investigative society. And it was started by Edmund Rogers and Sir William Barrett. And Rogers was brought the writings of Swedenborg in the mid-1800s. He was brought these writings by one of his friends, Sir Isaac Pitman. And Pitman had read Swedenborg's work, and he really wanted it to be carried on by those who, you know, made it out of the age of enlightenment, that still wanted to continue this quest for understanding the unknown and a quest for knowledge. So Edmund Rogers joined up with Sir William Barrett to form the Society for Psychical Research. They formed it in 1881. And it's actually still around today, and they have an American chapter. So if you guys are interested in that, that's something I definitely want to check out. Published in 1885, the aims and objectives of the society are as follows, and they actually are kept the same. They're still the same objectives that the organization follows today. Examination of the influence of the mind. They write, an examination of the nature and extent of any influence which may be exerted by one mind upon another, apart from any generally recognized mode of perception. So how can you influence someone else just based on your intent? The second one, the study of hypnotism and the forms of so-called mesmeric trance, which is alleged insensibility to pain, clairvoyance, and other allied phenomena. That's definitely interesting, because that's what we're going to be talking about next month if you guys tune in to our June episode, sorry. Point 3, a critical revision of Reinbach's research with certain organizations called sensitives, and an inquiry whether such organizations possess any power of perception behind a highly exalted sensibility of the recognized sensory organs. So higher sensory perception, and how do people have this ESP, and you know, is there any truth to it? The fourth point, a careful investigation of any reports resting on strong testimony regarding apparitions at the moment of death or otherwise, or regarding disturbances in houses reputed to be haunted. So that's kind of like what most people consider paranormal investigations now. Number 5, an inquiry into the various physical phenomena commonly called spiritualism, with an attempt to discover their causes and general laws. And the last one, the collection of coalition of existing materials bearing on the history of these subjects. So this has been the longest running society for paranormal research, which, oh, I can't really do the math, but it's something like 130 years, 135 years. So if you're ever, you know, in the UK and you want to check this out, I would highly recommend you do that. This is a picture from last year of part of their library on the inside. So if we take a little bit of a step back, the Spiritualist Movement was really brought to light by the Fox sisters in 1848. It took off in New York when two young sisters, Maggie and Kate Fox, began communicating with spirits through raps on furniture and walls. The story goes something like, this family moved into their farmhouse, and a few families before that, there were some peddlers that showed up, and the peddlers, like, went missing or something. And so the Fox sisters began talking to these spirits and got their parents so interested, got the neighbors, and everybody was so interested in, you know, how the sisters would be like, okay, clap twice, and then they would hear 2 knocks on the wall. So it felt like it was like very responsive. They actually dug up the cellar because they thought that there was bodies, and there was. So yeah, I don't know about that. That's a little creepy, but they found a human skeleton underneath their basement. So maybe they were communicating with spirits at one point, but they exploded. Everybody wanted to see them. They would go and perform these live live performances where they would speak to spirits, and they would have people flock by the thousands to watch them do this. It wasn't until 1888 that they actually revealed that they were just all faking, that there was no truth to this whatsoever. And the spiritualism movement shortly after in the 1920s really died down, and that's partially because mediums overall these years had just been debunked over and over again, and new hobbies like, you know, the movies had taken over the thrill of seances and psychic readings, so people started moving on to a different type of entertainment. So let's go then to what most people would call the grandfather of the paranormal, Charles Fort. He might possibly be the best known collector of paranormal anecdotes. He has been said to have compiled almost or over 40,000 notes on the unexplained. He's written 7 books, only 4 of them have actually survived. The only one of his books that I have read cover to cover is the Book of the Damned, which is one of the most popular books. He wrote about all kinds of events. He wrote about teleportation, which he actually coined that term, which most people don't know. He wrote about poltergeist activity, falling of frogs, fishes, and inorganic material from the sky, crop circles, unaccountable noises, spontaneous fires, levitations, UFOs, you know, animals found outside of their normal habitats, like the black panthers seen in the Midwest, and many more things. He wrote about anything that he could get his hands on that didn't fit the modern view of science. Like I said, he's considered by many as the father of modern paranormal research. And the magazine Forteana Times continues his approach, regularly reporting all these different accounts of the paranormal. Yeah, so he passed away in 1932, but his methods and the things that he brought to light really still live on. And one of those things, which I had to put the quote here, is, if there is an underlying oneness of all things, it does not matter where we begin, whether with stars, or laws of supply and demand, or frogs, or Napoleon Bonaparte. One measures a circle beginning anywhere. And that, my friends, is why we are called measuring the circle, which is something that I don't think that we really talk about enough or explain enough, because if you're new, you might not understand that reference. But yeah, when you measure a circle, when you're trying to find the area, you can begin anywhere. It doesn't matter, because everything is connected. And I think that there is a lot of truth to that with paranormal research. Whether you get interested in fringe topics with secret societies or other conspiracy theories or UFOs, or some people get interested because they had a ghost in their house growing up, or heard unexplained noises in their friend's house when they went over for dinner. You know, all of these different things, no matter where you start, if you continue to research enough, you'll find that you can begin anywhere and realize that, whoa, there's a lot of connections going on between all these different studies. So I hope you guys enjoyed my very brief and very much so scratching the surface history of Fortean research. And there's so much more that we could talk about. So I'm going to be in the chat. I don't see anybody talking to me. You guys are just making me talk to myself. I don't like that. But I'm going to play Allison's interview. And if you guys are here, please say hello. I will be in the chat waiting to talk to you. All right. The interview is about like 30 minutes. So I will see you guys soon. Bye. Updates to the Chicago Mothman whole scandal.
Yeah. In December or beginning of January. All I know is it was mind-numbingly cold. Since we were out there, there have been several of other reports that have surfaced.
In your hometown, right?
Yeah.
Hometown.
Yeah, there have been many reports in the Wisconsin, and one in the Milwaukee area. So
that's nice. You got a break from driving.
Yeah, I don't have to drive so far. Yeah. But I guess the most significant thing about that Milwaukee report is no information is in the account that can be followed up on. And this was presented that no information is in there because of unscrupulous researchers who might harass witnesses. Meaning me. Meaning you. Meaning Jack Blue. So possibly, you got to ask yourself, is there any veracity to a report like that when you can't even know where it happened? So that's the thing. I can't make a video on it. It's in Milwaukee, but I can't make a video because there's no identifiable information whatsoever. Yeah. So how can you base an account that's given any authenticity based on nothing that's verifiable?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm still gonna plan to get out there and to do as many videos as I can. We're up to 67 now, I believe, and I've been to 60. So, and actually maybe I've been to more because some of them might have been removed. Some of them were removed, but I know I've been to at least 60. Kind of, when you get to that number, you're final. Like how many is it exactly? But yeah, so I'll be getting out there and providing as much information about the current sightings as I can so that people can make their own determination and maybe apply some critical thinking to what's being presented. And I would love to believe that there's a winged creature out there, and I'd love to run into him. So if you're watching this, Mothman, I love you. And you should just come forward and admit that you love me too.
Just keep putting those vibes out there.
Right.
Keep it going.
I just think, come clean. But yeah, I would, of course, like to track down a monster. But the problem is that there's just so many inconsistencies in the reports. And no one's really addressing that. They're just like thinking that's fine. And it's not fine. Anybody can give you anything then. And if you're not going to vet it, if you're not going to just make sure that the most basic facts are verified, then, what separates it from fiction? I mean,
right.
I think, yes, people are interested in the paranormal for its entertainment value, but when they go to websites like Phantoms and Monsters, they're not thinking they're reading fiction. Mm-hmm. They're thinking that this has been provided by an investigator. And I think that's the bottom line. What have you done to actually investigate these cases besides just taking an eyewitness account? Because anybody can call. Anybody can make any report. And I'm sure they probably have. There's probably people out there who are like, we're going to call in this crazy report and see if it gets put up on the website.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just gonna see if it can happen. So, I mean, I think that there's got to be a dividing line between fact and fiction. We have to say, either this is all for entertainment value and we're not representing it as truth, or no, we've done some investigation, we've winnowed it down to some select cases, and we think these are the ones that can't be explained. There might be a real mystery here. So that's what I have to say about it. I mean, I'm really sick of talking about the Mothman thing.
I hear ya.
But on the other hand, I think there's something going on here that needs to be addressed and not just glossed over. And I wish that more researchers would do that.
And that the message that you're saying right now reaches more people, and more people start to critically think, fact check, and then also what I'd like to talk about more, while you have the time, is look into the history of paranormal research and the beginnings of where these things, just like the Mothman, didn't just start in Chicago. And it's pretty amazing how many people actually don't know about all the previous Mothman sightings that there were in West Virginia and like you said,
and around the world. There was one in Germany as well. So in England, I was lucky enough to go to England over spring break, and I was there doing research. But then, while I was there, I'm like, hey, the Mothman was sighted here in 1963, which precedes the most popular events associated with the Mothman, which are 1966 to 1967 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, but also in Kent, England in 1963. Some people reported seeing something very similar come out of the woods. It's interesting, they saw a strange light in the sky, and then they heard something coming out of the woods, and it was a dark, tall figure with long wings, and it seemed similar to the description of the Mothman for both the Point Pleasant accounts and from the Chicago accounts, but the only really notable difference is that it had webbed feet. I find that a very peculiar detail. So I prefer to call this one Bat Duck. I think that's a new cryptid, Bat Duck. And
I like it.
I think we should.
We're trademarking it now.
Bat Duck T-shirts.
We should,
because it's wicked cool. So I went. I thought, my channel, youtube.com/Mothman. It's not only Mothman on there, but that's what most people know me for now. So if I'm in England, let's do a Mothman video. So
you found it there.
I found it there. Yeah.
So the reason why you were in Kent, because you are doing research on a historical Fortean researcher named Catherine Crowe, correct?
That's right. And most people don't know anything about Catherine Crowe, and it's really, really sad because she is the mother of modern paranormal investigation.
Yeah, can you tell us more?
Yeah, well, she in 1848, published a book called The Night Side of Nature. And it was.
And I looked that up, and because it is older than 100 years, it is free reign, and you can download it free on the internet.
Absolutely, anybody can read it right now today.
Yeah,
and you really should, because you'll see that here, this woman at a time when women could not own property, they had very little freedom. She was out there doing paranormal investigations. I mean, this is 50 years before Harry Houdini was even born. She was investigating seances, and nobody knows her name, and it really saddens me because she is such an incredible figure. She was from England. She was born in Kent and lived her childhood years in Kent. And that's why I went there to research her life. But then after she married an army officer, but after they produced one child, she left him and moved to Edinburgh and became a writer. And she published The Night Side of Nature in 1848 because it was very well read, and even well read in German. She was reading German texts of paranormal investigators over there, and that's where we get the word poltergeist.
No way.
Yes, is from Catherine Crowe, because she was reading German researchers, and she was the one who brought it into the English language. She was reading all these books about possession and poltergeists and doppelgangers in Germany, and she's like, whoa, I have to write a book about England and talk about paranormal experiences here.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, so she was the one who brought that term poltergeist, which everybody knows now.
Yeah.
But they don't know anything about the person who would bring that term into English usage.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot lost there. There's too many people that know just what's going on today within the past 5 to 10 years, and they don't realize that these things have been around, that paranormal research has been around for 200 years, if not more.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the necessity of understanding our past? You know, how would you try to convince people to start looking into these historical accounts?
Well, I think, you know, if you don't have a long attention span or long memory, then a lot of what was learned in the past can be lost. And I think we have the benefit now of, you know, all these free texts on the internet to look back at the work of researchers that have gone before and to learn from what they did and to improve upon it. But if you don't even know about them, then there's no way that you can stand on the shoulders of giants. We have an extraordinary ability to do that, but if you just dismiss the past, then you're never going to, you know, get the gifts that it has to give you.
Sure.
So that's why I would say, you know, look at those who have gone before and see what comes out of it. And, you know, there was a book written a few years back, and it's called Ghost Hunters, and it's about William James, and it's about the American Society for Psychical Research, but and that establishment, but also before that the Society for Psychical Research in Britain, where it started, and about how all of these researchers really dedicated their lives to studying paranormal phenomena. And I think people completely forget these people. Even William James, who was the founder of the American Psychological Association, and a psychical researcher. I mean, they don't realize that, you know, some of the people who have been pivotal in our history have also been paranormal researchers. That's another thing that I think people miss. There's another book that's called Radical Spirits, and it is about the abolitionist movement and the women's rights movement in particular, but how the spiritualist movement, when people think of spiritualism, they think of, you know, how stupid were these people, right? when they see these, you know, the photography fraud that was perpetrated, but they don't appreciate that many of the people that were involved in the spiritualist movement were so ahead of their time. And things we take for granted today, they were fighting for the freedom of the slaves. You know, they didn't believe that slavery was right. They had a strong moral sense and a strong connection with, like, well, I guess you could say cosmic consciousness, because, you know, they believe that we go on and the spirits are among us, which, you know,
equal.
In some sense sounds crazy to people, but, you know, okay, these crazy people thought slavery was wrong when everybody else was okay with it.
Right.
And these crazy people thought that women should have equal rights when everybody was okay with them not being able to vote. And so we have to reevaluate what we think is crazy, I think. Yeah. You know, because if crazy people are those who, you know, live by a moral standard, whether or not society accepts it.
That's exactly right.
You know, who really are the crazy ones?
Right.
Is my question there. So Radical Spirits is another great book if you're looking to learn from researchers of the past.
So we've got Ghost Hunters and we've got Radical Spirits.
Yes.
Two really good recommendations.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
And of course, The Night Side of Nature by Catherine Crowe.
Yeah. That's great. You know, speaking of historical researchers, can you tell me more about how you came across the files of Dr. Miller and give us a little backstory on who he was and what that meant to you? Yeah,
so this is kind of bittersweet for me because, well, I'm a researcher in Milwaukee, and so I look for anything strange back in, you know, all those newspaper archives. And so I found that there was a university professor who was a professor of psychology and social work at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And he was actually a professor there when I was actually going to college there.
Oh, really?
Yes. He was there for part of the time that I was there. And so I'm really sad that I never knew him. So although he was a social work professor, he had this huge interest in studying the paranormal. So like I do today, he would go around to Milwaukee libraries and civic groups and such and talk about hauntings in Milwaukee history. And so I was thrilled when I looked and found articles about him which said that he had a collection of 2,000 presentation slides that he used when he would present at such places. So who wants the slides? I do.
Yeah.
Because I'm still doing those presentations, and anything that he researched should live on. It shouldn't just die with him. Oh, all that hard work he did out the window. No, I mean, I think someone should carry it on. So at first I checked with the university, and although they have some of his other work that he did in other areas, they don't have any of his paranormal
research
treasures. And so I reached out to the family, which I'm it's hard, I'm reluctant to do it. But I mean, he did die in 1994, but still, it's your dad.
It's always going to be a harsh subject.
So I decided that, hey, I should reach out and just explain that I'm doing this because I'm really interested in the work, and I want to try to carry on, any findings that he had, and tell people about him and the research that he did.
I'm sure they would really appreciate that.
And they did. So I was able to eventually track down the daughter. They live in Atlanta, Georgia now.
Oh, fun!
Yeah. So it was a haunted road trip. And if you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Mothman, of course we have a playlist with all the Mothman videos, but we also have a haunted road trip playlist, because that's where I started doing videos, is going to these haunted locations on the way to pick up the Doug Miller files. And then I said, well, why don't I just always do this? Because I'm always at haunted locations. Or locations where other strange phenomena have been reported. So why don't I just document all of them? I know it's very slapdash, but it's heartfelt. It's heartfelt, and I think it is valuable to be able to see these locations. And it's off the cuff, asking questions of people I run into there. And also, they all start out as Facebook Live videos, but so that people can ask questions at times, and those are included in the videos as well. I was just thrilled that they invited me to last summer come to Atlanta, Georgia, and stay with them. They actually invited me to come stay at what is a palace. I got it.
Really? Yes.
It's a palace. And I was like, what? You mean I get to stay here like for free? And it was just really wonderful to connect with his family, and to hear about their stories of him, and so now I have 3 huge boxes of slides, and he did have a very good organizational system.
That's good.
So I have been able to glean some things already that are local, and I'm hoping to I think there might be more notes or other local information that I might still be able to find. There's another researcher that he worked with who got his library, so I'm still trying to connect with that gentleman.
There's even more
to see if maybe he got notebooks or other things that went with slides on some of the local cases that are covered in the slides.
Well, although there's a lot to cover here, I think one of the things definitely is that if you're a paranormal researcher and you have journals of all of your work, you definitely need in your will what person is going to be responsible for taking all of your hard work and running with it.
Yeah, because just think about how much valuable data is being lost all the time. If you have dedicated your life to something, well, make sure it lives on.
Yeah, and gets in the right hands.
Absolutely.
For somebody that respects it. And
I'm going to work on my will right after this.
So out of the 2,000 slides, about how many have you gotten to go through, and what, has really popped out at you as being something of major interest that you found?
Yeah, okay, so I've only been able to just skim the surface. What it seems like now is there's a lot of slides that are international in focus. Oh, wow. And there are a few that are locally focused. So I'm hoping that I can connect with the researcher that has his library and see if there's even more documentation on local cases. But one of the local cases that I was able to find information about was the Tallman haunting case from the 1987 in Horicon, Wisconsin. And this was a case that was became pretty well known because Unsolved Mysteries did a segment on one of their special Halloween episodes about the Tallman haunting. And so what essentially happened is, this family moved into a house that is not historical. It's just, new construction. And they moved into the house, and first the children began experiencing strange things where, like, the little boy was in his room, and he had gotten a radio as a gift. And so he was in there listening to his radio, and then suddenly the radio dial started turning on its own, one of those really old radios where you had to physically turn it and watch the little red thing go down the and he was like, oh my God, and it just ran out. And of course it was like, the radio dial, and something was moving it and changing the stations. And of course he's a little kid, so
it was dismissed.
It was dismissed, right? But then when he and the other children started to report that there were strange shadows in the room, that there were people in there bothering them, then the parents started to listen, and there were other strange things, like in the basement with as they were improving the house, like the husband would be doing some work, and then he'd go up for dinner, and then he'd come down, and although he had been the only one down there in the basement, like his paintbrush would be missing, or little things would be
where you notice,
right, where
there's something going on.
There's something going on, because I know where I put it. I wouldn't have put it like upside down in the paint bucket or something like that. That would not be something I would do. And so he was starting to realize that, hey, something is really going on here. And I think it culminated in one event where he came home and the garage appeared to be on fire. And so he like ran into the attached garage, and and he heard this voice that said it was there to harm him and his children, but as he ran into the garage, there were no flames, and so they didn't stay there that night.
Sure,
and then they brought in a priest.
That's probably smart.
And they brought in investigators, and one of the investigators they brought in was Professor Don Miller from UW-Milwaukee.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so in the slides are pictures of the house and the investigators who there might be one survivor, but even the people that look young in the picture, like one of them, like the police chief, I found that he's deceased. So most of the people, if not all, who were involved in investigating the case are now dead, because we're now more than 25 years on from the case. But it was interesting to just see those pictures of investigators who go into the field like we do, and here they are. These are our brethren, right?
Right.
And to see pictures of the house. And it was later ascertained that the haunting was emanating from some secondhand bunk beds that they purchased.
Definitely a creepy item. I mean,
right.
Everybody should.
Yes, and so one geeky thrill for me is that these bunk beds, which were talked about in Unsolved Mysteries, nobody has a picture of them except me. Right?
Oh,
so I have,
awesome.
because the bunk beds have, after they found out that they were supposedly the source of the haunting, they put them in the local landfill, and then they were never seen again. So nobody has actual photographs of the bunk beds or of the house or of the bedrooms or anything like that. And
now they do.
Now they do, because they're in the slides. And so then I released that information to the blog Cult of the Weird, who then published the photos. So I'm hoping I'm able to make more such disclosures in the future as I go through the slides that I have, or perhaps acquire more information, because the family is still looking too.
That's great.
And they come into town. They still have a brother that lives in Milwaukee, so they do come into town quite frequently.
They stay at your palace.
I don't think mine would compare. But we have gone out to lunch, and we do plan other such get-togethers. But I just can't compete with their palace. No, it's like, you could stay on the couch. I don't think that'll. Yeah,
there's no butler taking their shoes.
After the hospitality they showed me, I couldn't match it. But so I'm still in contact with the family,
great.
and as they find things and visit Milwaukee, they bring me more binders and things that they find.
How fun is that?
So it's really great. And I was able to last year at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. I every year give a Milwaukee Forteana presentation, and my presentation this past year focused on some of those Wisconsin researchers that have gone before, and so I got to talk about Don Miller and show the slides.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's really great to continue on that history and get more people interested in.
Yeah. And I think if you really care about this stuff, don't you want to reach out to these people who are almost like family to you? I mean, because they went before, they have things to teach us. And, if we're interested in the spirits, why are we so disinterested in the spirits of the researchers that went before?
Ooh, very good.
Yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah. We have to make T-shirts with that on.
Yeah, right.
That and Bat Duck.
But yeah,
we have trademarked two
We got lots of T-shirt ideas here.
Yeah.
We're gonna make big bucks.
So when is the next Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, or where can people find you at?
Well, that's a good question. When is the
haven't
next
set a date yet for
conference?
that?
Yeah, I don't think we have a date, but I'm sure they will put together one for 2018. They usually do it in October.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to that, and they can find more information about me in several locations. I have a haunted history tour that I started in Milwaukee. You can find more information about that as well as my blog at milwaukeeghosts.com. That is plural ghosts, because if there's only one ghost, I wouldn't have much to talk about.
Yeah,
so milwaukeeghosts.com. And you can also find my videos at youtube.com/Mothman. And of course, I have a weekly podcast with my brother and his bandmate called See You on the Other Side. And you can find our almost 200 episodes on iTunes, or you can just go to othersidepodcast.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Allison, and I look forward to seeing what those other 1,999 slides have.
I know, right? So hopefully I'll be bringing you more interesting news of the week.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and welcome back, you guys. We had only one person in the comment box, so shout out to Andrew, I don't want to mess up your last name, Andrew Jasso for saying you are doing your research and I'm glad to be watching. Well, Andrew, we are really glad that we had you as a watcher, and I hope that everybody really enjoyed that interview. Allison is absolutely great. So I'm going to throw up a credit scene in just a minute, so if you guys are interested in learning more about Allison, you can follow her on YouTube or on her and her brother's bandmate do a weekly podcast called See You on the Other Side. And she also does ghost tours in Milwaukee, Wisconsin called MilwaukeeGhost.com. So, last thing before I say goodbye to you guys is our next show is going to be June 28th. Our shows are always the last Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook because we always post an event and notifications that we're going to have a show because it's hard to remember and everybody's super busy. So if you subscribe or like our Facebook page, you'll be sure to get reminded of when our next show is, which we will be talking about hypnosis and the power of belief. So I'm very excited to talk about that topic. And we'll have Jim back. So everybody give your well wishes to Jim. And until next month, bye. Bella, tell everybody bye. Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend, everyone. Talk to you later.